tell you a story. You know the one about the mother lion and her little cub?
Possession dressed as love. That is what Cersei Lannister is performing in this room. Not comfort, not protection, but an act of control so complete it includes deciding whether Tommen gets to survive the night. The vial in her hand is not a last resort. It is the logical end of a love that was never built to set anyone free. This is what ownership looks like when it believes it is devotion.
Kingswood? Yes, my love. In the Kingswood, there lived a mother and her cub. She loved him very much.
To calculate the atmospheric pressure of this Maegor's holdfast, we must understand what Cersei believes she is protecting and what she is actually losing. Stannis Baratheon's fleet is at the gates. The wildfire has lit the water. Joffrey has been pulled back from the walls. Myrcella is already gone to Dorne. The holdfast is the last room Cersei controls. She knows what happens to highborn women when walls break. King's Landing offers no mercy to the losing side. She has one vial of essence of nightshade, she has one child beside her, and she has already decided that Tommen will not exist inside a world she cannot govern. That is not a mother's fear speaking. That is a possessor's calculus.
But there were other things that lived in the woods, evil things.
Like what?
Like stags.
Notice what Cersei names as evil. Not soldiers, not fire, not the sound of a city breaking. Stags, the sigil of House Baratheon, the house that put a king on the throne Cersei was never allowed to refuse, and a husband she was sold to without a word of her own consent. In a bedtime story meant to comfort a child, she does not leave the political world outside the door. She folds her own unprocessed grievance into the fable and hands it to Tommen as inherited truth. The wound does not stay inside her. It migrates, cleanly, quietly, without announcement. Projective Identification, a psychological process where a person places their own unacceptable feelings into another person, then reacts to that person as though they now independently own those feelings. Cersei does not tell Tommen she hates stags. She tells him stags are evil and lets him arrive at the feeling as his own conclusion. The wound transfers. The carrier never has to confess it existed.
I hear them howling in the night. Little cub was frightened.
The cub is frightened because Cersei made him frightened. She introduced the wolves. She described the howling. She built the threat inside the story, then positioned herself as the only shelter from it. This is the structural engine of possessive attachment. Manufacture the danger, monopolize the safety. Tommen does not arrive at fear through experience. He arrives at it through her narration, which means the only barrier between him and that fear, in his mind, is the woman controlling the story. That is not a mother comforting a child. That is a leash made of language. Cersei has been doing this since before Tommen could walk. Not through cruelty, through need. The need to be irreplaceable. Joffrey absorbed her rage. Myrcella absorbed her grace. Tommen absorbed her softness. Each child carried a different fragment of what Cersei needed to deposit somewhere. None of them were allowed to simply be their own shape. Emotional parentification. A pattern where a parent unconsciously uses a child as a container for their own emotional regulation, making the child responsible for the parent's sense of safety, identity, or meaning. Tommen is not being raised to survive the world. He is being raised to survive inside her version of it. His fear, his courage, his sense of self, all of it flows through her voice. The story is not for him. The story is for her.
For one day all the beasts will bow to you. You will be king. All the stags will bow, all the wolves will bow.
Every creature submits to the lion. That is the world Cersei is installing inside Tommen's imagination, a world of total dominion where the Lannister name meets no resistance. But the dominion she describes does not belong to Tommen. It flows from her. She is the voice that named him king. She is the authority that predicts his power. Without her narration, there is no crown. Without her definition, There is no lion. She has made herself structurally necessary to his sense of self, not through love alone, but through being the only source allowed to name what he is. A child told what they are, repeatedly, exclusively by a single source, does not develop a self. They develop a reflection. Tommen will grow into adulthood believing he is strong, fierce, and destined. Because Cersei told him so, and because she told him so, the belief will always belong to her more than to him. The crown she places in the story is real enough to feel. It is too heavy to carry alone, and she will always be nearby, ready to hold it up quietly, as though that is simply what love does. Enmeshment. A relational pattern where a parent's identity and a child's identity become so fused that the child has no separate emotional existence. Their feelings and choices are experienced as extensions of the parent. Cersei does not see Tommen growing away from her. She sees him as the part of herself that still has futures. His crown is her vindication. His strength is her proof. When he eventually breaks, and he will break, it will feel to her like something inside her own chest giving out.
The cub said, "Will I be strong and fierce like my father?" "Yes," said his mother. "You will be strong and fierce just like your father."
Tommen's father is Jaime Lannister. Cersei knows this, and when Tommen asks about his father, she does not hesitate. The lie comes instantly, cleanly, without visible effort. Not because she is a skilled deceiver in this moment, but because the truth would require Tommen to have a reality she did not build, a father she cannot control, a lineage that belongs to him and not to her architecture. So she closes the door. She answers quickly, and Tommen accepts it, because children always accept the reality their mother hands them first. The lie is not cruelty in this moment. It is maintenance. It keeps the world she constructed intact. There is a distinction between protecting a child from dangerous information and controlling what a child is allowed to know about themselves. Cersei crossed that line the moment Tommen was born. His parentage, his real danger, the vial 2 feet from his face, he has access to none of it. He sits beside her believing he is safe. He is not safe. He is simply not given enough information to know he isn't. That is the mechanism, not cruelty. The slow, systematic removal of every truth that would allow him to exist outside of her. Gaslighting by omission, a form of psychological manipulation where a person withholds truths, rather than telling direct lies, to prevent another person from accurately understanding their own reality. Cersei never tells Tommen he is unloved. She withholds only what would allow him to see himself clearly, his true parentage, the real threat of this night, the vial she is holding. He trusts completely. That trust is exactly what makes the omission function.
I will keep you safe. My love, I promise you.
She means it. That is the detail the scene earns and the show trusts the audience to sit with. Cersei is not performing care. Tommen is 7 years old and there is nothing to gain from manufacturing tenderness in this room. She genuinely believes that ending his life before soldiers reach this floor is an act of love. She has constructed a version of protection so total, so collapsed inward on itself, that it can no longer tell the difference between shielding someone and owning them entirely. The vial is not a monster's action. It is a woman whose love ate through its own container and came out the other side as something that still calls itself love. Possessive love does not announce itself as a threat. It presents as devotion, loudly, completely, without visible seams. The child inside it feels protected. The parent providing it feels noble. The cage is real. The devotion is also real. Both exist simultaneously, and that is what makes this pattern so difficult to name from inside the relationship. Cersei will never understand that she loved wrong. From where she has always stood, she never stopped loving at all. That is not a defense. That is the clinical shape of the wound. Pathological overprotection, a behavioral pattern where a caregiver's need to shield a dependent exceeds rational boundaries and begins to suppress the dependent's autonomy, agency, and right to exist independently. The vial is the proof. A parent who loves a child wants the child to outlast them. Cersei wants Tommen to outlast danger, but only if she is standing between him and that danger. Remove her from the equation, and she would rather close the equation entirely. The love is real. The love is also a cage with no key she is willing to hand to anyone else. But here is what the show never told you. In the source novels, Cersei's possessive behavior is not a flaw she developed. It is a prophecy she has been living inside since childhood. A woods witch named Maggy the Frog told her as a girl that every one of her 3 golden children would die before her. Not might die, would die. Cersei has known since she was a child that holding will never be enough. Every act of control, every lie withheld, every vial held, these are not power moves. They are the behavior of someone trying to outrun a sentence already written. The possessiveness is a trauma response to foreknowledge, and that changes what the vial means. It is not ownership. It is a woman trying to author the one ending fate told her she cannot have. The behavior Cersei performs in that room has a recognizable modern shape. The parent who solves every problem before a child can fail, who makes themselves the only reliable source of safety, who loves so loudly the child cannot hear their own instincts beneath it. Psychologists call it the indispensable parent pattern. The wound underneath is always the same, a terror of becoming irrelevant to the person loved most. The trap is not built from malice. It is built from the same material as the devotion. That is what makes it so difficult to identify from the outside and functionally invisible from within. Cersei did not poison Tommen that night, but the story she told him, the one where lions rule everything, where stags and wolves bow, and where the only voice that names what he is belongs entirely to her, that story never stopped running. It followed him through every throne room, every marriage, every window. He never knew the cage had a name. The real question is not whether Cersei loved her children. She did. The question is whether love that cannot survive a child's independence is love at all, or whether there is a quieter, more precise word for what it actually was. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'll see you in the next.